Hi, it's me, Rasheed, co-speaker and author of Soul Trader, putting the heart back into your business. And welcome to this, the latest Soul Trader podcast. And today, what I'm going to be looking at is business model success, personal, practical, and profitable. Um, this is a really important topic. And I remember that in my early years in business, people would use this term business model a lot of the time, and I didn't really understand what they meant, but it would come up a lot of the time. I knew it related somehow to their business and their success and their profitability, but I didn't quite understand what it meant. Over the years, what I came to understand that it meant is what's the kind of shape, nature, and structure of the business and your activities of the products and services in a way that's going to be most practical and profitable for you. What is that business model? What is that shape that's going to work for you? Sometimes you can get clues from that from other people and how they are in your industry, in your sector, and who are providing the same business or product service as you. And sometimes that will come from a little bit of that and a little bit of searching within, in terms of perhaps because you know from your own lived experience, if your business is based on people's lived experience, that this is the kind of thing that people might need, or the shape it might well need to be, or that you've used certain services or bought certain products from certain businesses, and you spotted the things that do or don't work in terms of the product, in terms of how it's provided and how it's done or how it's run, or you've gone into a shop and you've noticed that, well, this doesn't kind of work, or that doesn't work, or a particular service, and you've come up with a way that could kind of improve that. So there's a number of different elements here in terms of the business model and business model success. And for me, for the sole trader, where it's just you, one person in that business, it can potentially be more challenging, a journey, and it because your unique business may well be so unique to you and how you want to do that business. And hence, we're going to be looking today at this podcast through these three lenses of personal, practical, and profitable. I want to start off with, maybe to put this in context, a little bit of my own story, some of which I've actually shared before. So when in the early years of my business, I knew that I wanted to coach. I knew that I wanted to coach people. My intention originally was to start with working with singers and performers and maybe some media people, because that had been my background. And I particularly was interested in helping singers take charge of their lives and their careers. So the plan was to provide one-to-one coaching to those people who had been in singers and performers. And that would be the model. I was providing one-to-one services in person or by telephone, way back then, for those particular people. And that was the model, that was the shape of the particular business. And I had a number of different packages that people could buy, that they could buy a series of 4, 8, or 12 sessions. And that was the business model pretty much. Over a period of time, I realized that I could and I wanted to develop that model further, develop that offering. I wasn't using this terminology then, but develop that offering more. That I wanted to. I realized that I could do talks and workshops, and so I got some work where I was adding some talks and workshops. Somewhere I was being hired by other people to deliver them, to help other people who were on that journey of starting and running their own boss. So some was where I was hired in to deliver that. And then there was then what came quite soon was also the sessions I ran for the British Library at that time on site, and that were paid for. There was a small amount of money that people would pay in order to attend those. And back then there was a couple of events. One event that people would just come in, and it was just about the model of that was I would book people in, way back then, I would book them in kind of personally, do that kind of admin, to do that, to book them on when they requested the bookings. It's a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember all the ins and outs of it. And then there was another event, was also teas and coffees and so on. So I had to kind of begin to understand with the different, with those different nature of events, which ones were the most profitable, which one were the most practical, which ones did I enjoy most, which had the most hard work in it, and to consider all of these different strands of my business, the one-to-one coaching, the one-to-one coaching of the people who I was coaching, starting off with the singers and performers, and then that broadened out into other areas, and then the times where I was doing talks, and then these other workshops, and I had to begin to work out the blend of things that really worked, the structure, the model that worked for me. And what I came to learn was that having these different pillars of business made sense. So many people's business model will be based on a few different pillars. So in the same way that cafe, they may well have, the business model might be based on, okay, people are coming in for teas and coffees. People coming in for teas and coffees who are just having the teas and coffees and taking them out. That in itself can be a very powerful business model. And some people's business model is purely on a thing whereby people just come in, they take out their teas and coffees, there's nowhere for them to sit. Then there might be a business model where it's, okay, you've got the teas and coffees, you've got a traditional cafe, you've got your teas and coffees, but there's other things. You've got your cakes, you've got your pastries, you've got your quick bits of food. You might have your teas and coffees and your breakfast. Then you might have also lunches and dinners and so on. You've got these different products, and they will work out from these different streams. How much are we making from our teas and coffees? How much are we making from our pastries and our cakes? How much are we making from the teas, coffees, and the pastries and cakes? How much are we making from the lunches? How much are making we from the dinners and from the different bits? And what's the blend that works for you? So you can work out the logistics of how your business works. There's actually quite a lot of different dynamics that will be going on in any business to think about, okay, which streams, which product lines, or which service lines are the ones which are most profitable, practical, and unique to us, and where where there is that demand. So when it comes to you and your own business as a sole trader, this is something you're going to need to figure out. And it took me a long time to kind of figure it out, um, what was going to work for me. And I want to then take us back again to these three lenses that I want us to look at this from: personal, practical, and profitable. First, personally, what resonates with you as a sole trader? Because you've got to run a business that really resonates with you. What is it about for you? For me, it's always been about helping people. It's about helping people find themselves. I enjoy the one-to-one work, but as time developed, I realized that I really enjoyed running the workshops, the talks, and I realized that training, and I had been a trained trainer, and I realized I could build that in. And I realized that that could be quite a profitable arm of the business. I needed to work out where the most potential could be. I had the business model before had been built on individual people paying me from their own pocket as a coach. That was okay, but at different times when the economy changed, people putting their own money in their own pocket to pay for me as a coach, I kind of began to learn that that may not in itself be wholly sustainable. It got me off of the ground. It got me some first paid work, but it wasn't really getting me to a point where I was going to begin to compete with where I was before. So I needed to change that business model. I needed to change that. But what I found were the things that I really enjoyed also included the talks, the workshops, and so on. So I was able to broaden that business model with things that also resonate with me and the variety of things that worked. So on a personal level, you've got to understand yourself. And are you somebody who enjoys doing one thing? Do you enjoy doing a range of things? I actually enjoy doing a range of things. So that suited me and my personality. So for me, doing the talks, the workshops, that kind of performance bit, because I'd been a singer and performer. So actually talks, workshops, and training really resonated with me because it brought together all my skill sets. So what is it that's going to work for you personally? What are the bits that you enjoy? What are the things you enjoy? What are the things you do not enjoy? You need to understand that, and you need to understand what's going on in your own personal life. What is it's going to function for you? Is it the case that it's about you delivering everything? Is it about that you're going to get somebody else alongside you, or somebody else who is actually doing the delivery piece, or somebody else who's doing the backstage piece, even though your business is technically a sole trader business, but you've got different consultants who are helping you with different things. So there's going to be lots of different personal choices. You need to know, uh, it's a bit like, are you a solo artist or are you best in a group? You've got to be very, very honest with yourself about the answer to that question. You're part of the best of a group, a duo. what you like doing and where you're strong, where you're weak. You've got to be very honest with yourself. And what is it that resonates with you personally? What is this journey about? And this takes us back to the heart. What is this about? Why are you doing this? You've got to trust your heart, trust your instinct. So there are certain decisions that I've made that have linked to my business and my business model that also were just things that I wanted to do, producing some of the products and the first things that will become the talks and the books. And some other things, activities that I did were because they came from my heart, they needed to be done. So it's honoring what works for me and my heart, the personal. So I invite you to pause, breathe, pause this, listen, what's really important to you personally? How does this thing need to be set up? How many days a week do you want to work? How much time off do you want to work? Where do you want to be based personally? What's important to you? Because the business model is going to need to work for you. Otherwise, you're just not going to make it work. You're not going to put in the time, the energy. So sit with that. Next, practically, the practical bit is that's the bits that involve you and the world around you. At the beginning of the Soul Trader book, I don't know if you've read it, but there's a bit where it has three circles, three interlocking circles. You, your business, and your customers, your sector. It's worded like that. I could actually look at the book because it's kind of it's in front of me. So it invites us to consider that there are going to be those three interlocking circles of you, your business, and your kind of your industry and your sector, and that the practicalities sit there in that sweet spot. Actually, I've worded it. Actually, here doing a video recording as well as the audio recording here. It says, yeah, you, your business, and your customers, your market. So the practicality is going to be the bit where you can understand who are my customers, what do they want, what are their challenges, how do they see the world, what are their problems, what do they want, what do they need, what are they already buying, what's working, what is not. Because your business model is going to need to be based on reality, and that's going to shape your business. So you need to understand what's going on for my customers. How is my business shaped? And what's really important for me? And we've got to find this sweet spot where we can marry them. And there's going to be a little bit of give and take here so that you're delivering something based on what people want and what they need. One of the things that the changes that I needed to make in my own business model was that for me, I realized that finding the audience, finding the customers, um, with with a business model that was based on what they would call business to consumer. So my business was based on business to consumer, me finding the individual member of the public to buy me and pay for me. That meant I need to do a lot of marketing, doing this, doing a lot of networking, going out there, meeting a lot of people. And this was all before online was there, but a lot of this was about going out there and meeting people, and online wasn't as sophisticated then. So that's how I found lots of my business clients for this business to consumer business. I then realized that actually, why don't I try and find the places where they already, well, two things. Maybe organizations could be my customers. So this is now business to business. So organizations could hire me in to deliver, first of all, workshops for them because they had the customer base of the public. So that was really interesting. So first of all, that's when I was giving talks, workshops, and yeah, some of the same stuff I'd been doing, coaching business owners by that point. But I was meeting them through the organizations who had that audience. But also then over time, and this was over many years, where the business model shifted again, where I realized actually some of the stuff that I could do could be very relevant for organizations. For a long time, I didn't want to go there. I wasn't interested in doing that work with organization, within organization. I wasn't interested in it. I wasn't ready for it. Wasn't sure if I had the skills and all of that. And so those things kind of developed. So what you need to be aware of is practically your business model is going to be shifting and changing as the environment, as the terrain around you changing. Your car is moving, and the environment around you, the landscape is shifting and changing. you're moving, you're moving, you're going for a walk and so on. The weather is changing, it's becoming more windy, you're putting your jacket on, you're needing to adjust. You may be putting layers on or taking those things off. You might need an umbrella, you might need to stop off for this and that. Business is very similar to that. So the practicalities may shift and change, and you need to shift and change by observing what's going on for your customers, what's going on within your industry. You can't just assume. And what's interesting about business model is the business model, there'll be many sectors in which, even for incumbents in that industry, customers' needs and change and their what they're wanting is changing. So I used to be a singer and performer in the music industry. Has changed a lot, and the technology actually throughout the 20th century, for example, changed a huge amount. The technology changed, and that changed things, and that changed how people might purchase or want to consume music and so on, and that's continued to shift and change. And at certain points, for example, even big record labels weren't necessarily aware of some of the changes or paying attention to some of the changes that was happening with things like the internet, and that might change how people might want music. They might not want to buy physical music, they might want to stream music, and that for a long time took record labels a long time to get their head around. One might even argue potentially to that to this day, and that can happen to every industry and sector. So you need to be kind of aware of what's going on in your sector. And sometimes as a small business that you might even realize, well, actually, this might work better than that. It's a bit like that classic thing that people would say that a large business is a bit like a tanker, and a small business is a little bit like a speedboat. A tanker can take longer to turn around. So if there's a change in what's going on in the circumstances, a tanker might in some ways be robust, be able to withstand the weather and all of that, but it might well be a smaller speedboat, might be able to move more quickly and to be able to adapt more quickly and spot things perhaps more quickly, depending on that awareness. So again, it's the same for you as a small business owner. So practically what's going on, and do you, for that, the practicalities, do you have that knowledge? Do you have that insight? This is where places like the British Library's Business Intellectual Property Centre can be really of use for you. bl.uk/BIPC, as in Business Intellectual Property Centre, to help you to understand your market research, your marketplace, workshops, talks, resources, and so on. All of that stuff. There's lots of that stuff out there to help you to begin to understand this stuff, to understand business, understand different elements of business, financial models, business marketing, all of these different dynamics of it to learn. There's all sorts of courses, resources, and stuff that may well be able to help you to navigate that. And this is where also industry groups could be really useful for you. There can be general industry groups, places like chambers of commerce or the equivalent wherever in the world that you are can be really useful to understand some general business themes. And then sometimes they may have different strands of particular different industries. And then there may well be trade groups, bodies for your particular industry. Some will be good, some will be bad, some will be indifferent, that will help you to understand some of the very specifics that are going on for your customers and in your particular sector, that will help you shape your business model. That may well be some of the practical things. And then some of the practicalities might just be based on you, your lifestyle, your health, your age, your stage, your fitness, and so on. That in terms of how much work you can do, where you can do it, how you need to do it, whether you've got kids, whether you've got dependents. Early on, I could be quite flexible. I didn't have dependents and so on. Fortunately, I didn't have higher overhead. So I was able to, for a while, even though my business model wasn't working that profitably, to still run practically. And for me, that lots of the practicalities were about, okay, setting up a room in my house where I was going to work from, making sure I have the phone that I could do things from, having the different business accounts. So there's a lot, a separate business account to my personal account, and understanding some of those logistics so that I could practically develop that model. But then I needed to work out the third step that we're going to go into, the profitability. So we've talked a little about personally, what's really important to you, what floats your boat, what resonates with you, why are you here, following your heart, trusting your instincts, knowing who you are. Then there's going to be the practical thing. What is it your customers want, need, what's working, what's not in your sectors, what they're paying, what's their problem. For that, you need to talk to people, you need to listen to them. You might need to do the quantitative research and in terms of tech trends and what's going on in your industry and all of that stuff to understand that. And sometimes it might be that, and also definitely the qualitative, asking people who are they, what do they want, what are the challenges, how do they want things delivered, how much do they want to pay? Having these kind of conversations. Have they paid for these things before? understanding whether people are genuinely interested in what you're doing and having really good counsel, maybe speaking to people who've been there and done been there, done that, the industry groups, etc. Finally, the profitability. This bit is crucial, and it's crucial to the sole trader. Because we know you care, we know that you've got heart and you're doing what you're doing because it resonates with you. Remember, it's important that head and heart are both required. The trust in your heart to be still and to be silent, that can give you so much insight. It can help open up serendipitous doors because you're meeting people from the heart. And I remember there's a business that I am fortunate to do some coaching for. They're a IT company, and the founder of that company, Tom, I asked him at one point, how is it that you gain your business? And he said, I do trust marketing. His version of that, when he didn't expand that much further, but from me observing him, he'd meet people, he'd have conversations with people, and people would connect to him because of his authenticity, and they would hire him in his company. He would go out there and he'd connect with people, he would talk to people, and there's something about him, his warmth, and his knowledge that would come across. You would trust him. He embodied what he was talking about. His knowledge, his wisdom, his geekiness, his passion for people, and his kindness, his openness. And people would be drawn into him and what he was doing. So they would hire him and his business. So for him, there was a combination of head and heart, that heart of just being authentically himself that would draw people to him and to what he was doing, but also him being very, very consciously aware of that and that he needed to go out there. So there is an element of heart here with the profitability, loving you, loving what you're doing, loving your customers. So you are the kind of people that people just want to do business with. And that's where so much of my business has come from. Going out there, meeting people, connecting with them, caring about your customers, not just their cash. That's an important bit of it. An important bit of it is also to just understand, in terms of the business model, what are the different products or services that I'm running, that I'm providing? What's the cost of sale? In other words, what's the cost that it costs me in terms of time, money, energy, resources, equipment, overheads to create each thing, be it that I am baking cakes, making jewelry, providing one-to-one coaching. What's that cost in my time, the paperwork, the printing, the overheads, the electricity, whatever? What's the complete cost of that? Because you might think, oh, the cost is just blah blah blah, but what's the actual full cost in terms of your time, money, da 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 da. So you can begin to work out. And I remember the best example I can give was that I remember then I was looking at I decided when I needed to, profitability wise, understand how to come up with a good business model. I, at that point, was providing some one-to-one coaching. I was running couple of workshops at the British Library, and I was running some other sessions where I was hired in to go in and deliver. Some of the workshops where I was hired to go in and just deliver had the lowest cost in terms of me, my overheads and so on, because I was basically just going in there and delivering. So it would just be about my train ticket or whatever, tube underground ticket and so on to get there, and how much time it would take for me and the preparation time. Because all the printing and all of that stuff and materials would be taken care of them, or in some cases there were none. So it was just pretty much, okay, this is the amount of money I was being paid for that hour or that half day and so on. And there was a little bit of cost for my time and my travel and so on. The rest was pure profit. I realized that that was financially the most profitable bit of my business. I then had these two workshops I was delivering for the British Library, both on site at that time. This was pre-COVID. And there was one of them was a networking event, and the teas and coffees, and then there was the Sole Trader event, or the precursor to the Sole Trader. So they're the precursors of two events that I run currently at the time of recording this, Networking for Success and Sole Trader. They were earlier versions of that. But essentially, the networking one with the teas and coffees that I put in, and I think that was a slightly longer event. And the networking one, I realized that the profitability of the networking of the Sole Trader equivalent one was better than the one with the teas and coffees. but there was give and takes of the value of people got from the teas and coffee. But I realized I needed a model that could work. And I had to make some decisions about whether what some people call the loss leaders. In some ways, the event with the tea and coffee was it was still remain valuable because and whilst it didn't make that much profit, it was good at attracting people in. But I soon realized that I needed to understand these dynamics of just what's the cost of sale, what's the cost of, for every single thing that I'm doing, and which bits are the most profitable, and what blend of things do I need to do. So if I fast forward to where I'm now, there are webinars and talks that I do for free. The stuff that I do with the British Library. I'm their partner. I'm a proud partner. I love doing those things for free. It takes, yes, some of my time and all of the rest of it. But then there's other work that I do for organizations where I'm paid fairly well for doing the work that I do, better than many people. I'm very grateful for that based on my experience, my knowledge, and so on. And so my business is based on these different elements of the things that are free here, which is good visibility. It's a doorway into me and my world. And there are things here which I'm paid for. And there are different levels of payment for people in private sector and public sector, and so on. And then there's also with my one-to-one work, the bits of it that I do, there are different cost levels. And I've had to do that, working out how much do I get for this and what's worthwhile, the profitability bit. One last thing I want to say about the profitability bit, this is where your network and having wise counsel can be really useful. I remember that my dear friend Rita Bailey, I'll give her a name check, who's a coach and been a coach for longer than me. And in fact, I'd been one of the trainers when I trained as a coach, and had been in the industry for a few years more than me. We would have coffees and catch up. There's peer-to-peer catch ups. And she kind of was an informal mentor to me too, because I learned about certain things. And she would always talk to me about the profitability of the finance side. Well, Rash, what's in the order book? Have you thought about this? Da da da. She'd always be nudging me about this financial side, the profitability thing. She knew that the personal side was there. The bit that I've talked about, the personal, who I was, why I'm here, the passion, that bit was there. She understood that I understand a lot about the practicalities or the things that I was learn through our conversations about how she did certain things. But a lot of the practicalities I knew or I was learning. But the bit I hadn't had my eye on was the real profitability. Because I was quite creative, I'd often go off on that. I want to do this, I'm going to do this, things that would take a lot of my time and my money for me to do because I enjoyed doing them. But I learned to ask myself for every pet project that I was doing, because I still, back then I was then re-recording my music and doing things, or I might be doing at one point I created a pilot TV show and I might for a while spend time writing a book. I learned to ask myself all the time that you're taking doing this, what's bringing in the money whilst you're doing that? So having my eye on the profitability, having your heart on the customer, head on the money is my tip there. I've spoken for quite a long time. I want to begin to wrap that up now, but these are just things to begin to be thinking about to help you to think through you and your business model success, personal, practical, profitable. I hope that's been really useful. Please, there's more in the book. Read the book. The book may well help you with some of those things, the Soul Trader book. Come along to my Soul Trader. If at the time you're listening to this, it's still running. I hope it will still be running. But you might be listening to this long after I'm gone. Who knows? Um, but come along to if it's still running, the Soul Trader or the my Networking for Success events. Go along to my website or the soul-trader.biz website for that. And you'll find me on social media if social media is still running at the time that with these things running, because things do shift and change. And as you've got a sense of here, my business model has changed and your business model may well change and adapt as the world changes, and will have to adapt if the world changes to allow for that sustainability. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening or for watching if you've watched the video version. Thank you so much. Lots of love to you. Take good care. Bye-bye.